Good morning. This is Laura with at Healthy Carnivore. I've had some people reach out that wanted to know basically how to start carnivore. So yesterday at my lunch break, I was like, just start writing down some things and ended up with 5 pages. I'll try not to use every single bit of what I wrote down, but I am going to go over it just because a little bit of my background is I did 28 years of keto, found joint pain, some sinus issues, depression, anxiety the last couple years that I was doing keto, even where I was medicated with antidepressants, which I did not ever want to have to be on. Not that some people, they need them, that's fine. But I just didn't want to live out of a medication bottle. My career has been nursing for over 21 years. And I see every day people living out of multiple medication bottles. And I don't want to be that. So I choose to try to prevent that or help people get out of that. I'm now proud to say, and it has nothing to do with me other than I was the messenger, I now have two ex-diabetic patients that both have diabetes wiped off of their diagnosis. I'm so super stoked about that. Both men, which I know that I'm very surprised because in my career, I always saw women kind of jump on, be a little bit more proactive with their health. Even like with heart attacks, we'd have patients come in having a heart attack and they'd be like, well, I'm going to smoke tomorrow. The men would always say that. They're like, oh, it wasn't that. They'd come back for a second one. And then that would be like their wake up call, where a woman would be like coming in with angina, which is just chest pain that hasn't resulted in an MI. And they're like, oh, I'll quit smoking today. And that was it, So I'm just very surprised that so far, and not to say that I haven't had some females do some excellent lifestyle changes that have healed a lot of things, but to have two male patients who will never have to take insulin or an oral and anti-diabetic medication, again, as long as they, stay with the lifestyle. And even one of them, I mean, he does really more ketovore. It's very meat, fat heavy, very minimal vegetable, and no fruit. So, but I'm just so excited about that. So how do I start carnivore? So the first thing I always say is you have to figure out your personality. I'll tell you, I'm an A. I'm a type A. So I am an all or none, jump in head first. Don't worry about the repercussions till after they hit, and then you go back and figure that out. That's my personality. So I was somebody who just literally the day before Thanksgiving in 1991, I threw away sugar, potatoes, rice, pasta, everything white. I just threw it away. Very little vegetable because I've never been a vegetable lover. They've never loved me. They always gave me indigestion, stomach pains, and constipation. So fiber is a myth in my world. Some people, maybe you have to have fiber, not I. So anyway, that is my personality where I just jumped in. Some people need to do more systematic changes, little by little, like starting with breakfast. So what I always tell people is you're either a moderator or you're not. If you're somebody that can have one M&M or a couple M&Ms and walk away and not touch them for another 2 weeks, then you can probably do the cutting out the carbs a little at a time. I'm not that person. If there's a bag of, which not now because they don't bother me, but at the time when I first started, if I had 2 M&Ms, then it was like, I need to go back and have some more. So, and it would continue until that little bag of M&Ms or big bag of M&Ms was empty. So I'm just not that personality. It's why I don't do drugs and I don't drink, because I would do it to excess. I don't gamble, mostly because I'm cheap. Anyway, so some people, like I said, can moderate. They can walk away from some of those things or whatever. My husband's a moderator, very good moderator. He can have a bag of candy for a full year, eat one piece every so often and leave it alone. So for people who are moderators, I would say if you're wanting to venture into carnivore, you need to first figure out your why. Are you doing it for aesthetics only, just wanting to look good? And that's fine. There's no shame on that either. If you want to do it because you have some health issues, That's a lot of the reason most people go to this, is because they're at the end of their rope. They've done everything that the medical system has told them to do and find themselves on medications instead of any kind of curing. And a lot of it, and I don't want to sound, I don't know how to say it, the majority of the people that I come in contact with would rather take a pill than do any kind of lifestyle changes. Now, that being said, I do believe every single person has that point that they're going to hit where either the pain's too much, they don't like the way they look, they don't like the way they feel, whether it be depression, anxiety, gout, hypertension, kidney disease, any of those things, where it's going to be enough to push them to be like, I'm willing to try that. But wherever you're at, you kind of have to figure out what is your why you want to do it. And I always say, write that down. So if you are a moderator, I would say start with your breakfast for a week. If you're somebody that eats 3 meals a day, I would start by taking the carbs completely out of your breakfast. Do that for a week. Repeat for lunch. The next week, take out any of the bread. So like wipe out all the cereals, breads, bagels, muffins. I can't even think of all the bread things, but wipe all those kinds of things out. Oatmeal is not oatmeal. And it's not even necessary, and it's not heart healthy, because 90% of what you can buy at the store has been so processed that as soon as you chew it, you have amylase, which is an enzyme in your mouth, and it starts to break the starch down into sugar. So it's basically a sugar. So I would recommend eggs and sausage, eggs and bacon, eggs and burgers, steak and eggs. There's multiple different things that you could do for breakfast. Lunches, if you do burgers, just do 2 burger patties with, your cheese and whatever in between the 2 patties, and use the patties as a bun. Hot dogs, just do them without any kind of bun. If you're doing, steaks, you don't have to have sides with them. If you eat enough steak and enough fat, you will be full. I promise you. The other thing, and this kind of will depend on your personality, some people don't want to know how bad the food is that's out in the stores. Some people are just like, I'll just walk away from it. I don't even want to know. And that's okay. Other people like to be very, very informed and want to know. So I always say you have to know your personality and then read the ingredients. I will promise you, you almost have to have a chemistry degree, which I do. You definitely have to know biology. You have to know, it's just crazy. You almost have to be a chemist, which most of the people that work at those food factories up high that make the food additives and crap that's what they are. They're nothing to do with food. So I would definitely do that. I would look up the ingredients and see what does that ingredient even mean, because it's so sublime that you can just say natural flavors. Well, what the hell is a natural flavor? Like you and I think, oh, if it's something that's peach flavored, that means they use peaches. Not so. They don't have to. That's one of those loopholes that they get to use, along with many others. Just know that our food supply has been molested. It's been allowed to be adulterated, and just, and they always use the premise of, we're doing this so because of the overpopulation of the world, which is another BS statement. Are there places that are overpopulated in big cities? Absolutely. Is it overpopulation for the entire planet? I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe anything happens on accident like that. So I don't believe that. But our food supply, they're like, we got to feed the world, which a lot of other countries won't even accept our stuff. They've banned so many of the ingredients that we use. They won't even take our stuff. I won't say who's probably the biggest buyer of our stuff, because they'll be our bosses here before too long anyway. So the other thing that you have to understand, or that you don't have to understand, but I'm just going to tell you, I've been in the food world because I worked in food factory. I've been in the medical field now for over 21 years. Big food, big pharma, big medical, they are all in the same bed, 100%. So they know that the food they adulterate is going to cause disease. And that they know that you're going to have to go see the people in the medical field, which makes more money for those people. Then in turn, they're going to prescribe you the prescriptions because I worked in clinics. Um, those pharmaceutical reps come in, boy, are they fancy. They're like, oh, we'll have a meeting. We'll do some education. And you might go out to, I mean, I went one time because I just wanted to be able to say I knew what went on. We went and it was for a new blood thinner. And we went to a restaurant that cost him over $4,000 for the entire, staff to be at. And he's like, oh, it's no big deal. I just put it on the pharmaceuticals credit card. And I'm like, but that costs the patients more then, because here you are, it's already bad enough. We're paying for studies that half the time already were paid for by grants, or whoever was backing them. And they're like, well, you have to pay for all that. No, it's not that. It's paying for these things. We had doctors who wound up with brand new Porsches twice a year. They didn't buy that. Now, I'm not sure how they can get around those things because supposedly they're not supposed to be able to not supposed to be able to drop off pens to the office staff because we might push their product. They want you to push their product and you do get a kickback. So anybody that says they don't get a kickback, they're lying. I've seen it firsthand. I think in that meeting, they were there 3 hours. I can't stand to be, first of all, I like the people that I worked with then, but I didn't want to spend my whole evening down there. So I only stayed about an hour. And of course, the first part was where we did our meeting, for the education so they can claim it as an educational thing instead of sucking up to the doctors. We did 15 minutes on this drug. I could have looked up more information online about it than what we got. And that was the end of it. The rest of it, it was party, drinks, whatever. And I chose to pull myself out of that. I just refused to be part of the problem. So I always say, look at your food pyramid. So go back, and I don't know if you can find it on Google because Google is ran by the people, but I use DuckDuckGo as a search engine. So go back if you can and look at the older food pyramids. Look back from when they first really came out and compare it to the ones we have today. Now, people my age, I'm going to be 53. We have lived our whole lives with a food pyramid. We have, the schools followed it, the prisons follow it, the hospitals follow it. Our people in my age group and in their 60s, a lot of them followed it most of their life. Are we better? Are we healthier? Or are we sicker? I mean, just sit back and ask yourself that. That doesn't have to be my opinion, although I take care of the sickness. We're not better following their food pyramid because it's ass backwards. So I always say, look at that. Yeah, it's just completely crazy. So we end up with all these metabolic diseases like diabetes, type 2, kidney disease, hypertension, gout, arthritis, depression, anxiety, hyperlipidemia, which there are numbers that you want to be in a certain way that eating the standard American diet actually messes. So it will increase your triglycerides to be extremely high, which tells you diabetes is coming. Insulin resistance, and it's such a high number of people. If you ever follow Dr. I think it's Philip Avadia. He is a cardiothoracic surgeon, which means he does open heart surgeries, pneumonectomies, things like that. He talks about how when he first started, the majority of his patients were in their late 70s on his table, and he's had them in their 30s now. I don't know anybody that has two brain cells clicking who can put that together and be like, oh, that's totally normal. That's how things were supposed to be. So that's what I think. So then I say this, and I say this to every one of my patients, if they start asking questions, I don't just throw this on them, but you'll have them and they'll be like, look at all those pill bottles. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And they're like, and the doctor's going to probably add more. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure he will, because that's what they're trained. They're not trained in how to talk to you about change your diet, move more. And I don't believe in calories in, calories out, because I eat 3 times the amount of calories now that I ever did when I was keto, ever, by far. Um, but they don't ever discuss that stuff with you. And partly, not to give them an excuse, why would they on most people? Because most people are like, hey, I need fixed. I want the quick fix. And it's not that the pills are a quick fix, but they get you by. You know, they extend how long it is before a lot of times you hit that plateau of a disease. But I always tell them, I'm like, well, you know, some of the other countries, not that I like socialize healthcare because I don't, because that's Medicare and it's a crap show, and control over our elderly. Um, but, you know, you pay your insurance deductibles, your insurance dictates what the doctors can do. And that's all because it's called they have to work under what's called the standard of care. I ex- I really would love everybody to go look up what the standard of care is and who decides the standard of care. Because in my old world, I always was like, well, the doctor decides what we do, you know. And back in the early days, that was a good thing. You know, so many of the cures that they came up with were because, hey, let's try this. This looks like on paper, this should help. If it doesn't, we'll pull you back off of it, but let's see. Or let's change this in your lifestyle. Da da da. That's how a lot of cures were found. You're not going to find those now because nope, has to be tested in these big labs, spend millions and millions, if not billions of dollars doing so. So the doctors aren't even allowed to use this. Basically, it's here's a prescription pad and good luck. I was watching Dr. Baker and he talks about how they're taught how to put people on medications, but they're never taught how to detransition them from those medications and wean them down, which I absolutely believe that because the last job I had for the big corporate medical system, um, was pain management. And even though they were like, well, we need to get people off of pain medication, they didn't know how to do it. And they were like, well, how would you do this? They were asking the nurses, well, how would you come back off of that? Well, and we came up with calendars that, you know, we could taper you off gabapentin, Lyrica, whatever it may be, any of the diazepams, you know, um, anything like that. So they just don't know, you know, and I worked for great ones. They were some of the best, um, that truly believe in body autonomy and they are willing to talk with patients about health. So I always tell patients, does your doctor, like I said, back on these countries, other countries that have different type healthcare system, some of them are set up to where they don't get paid if you're sick. So they're going to be more likely to want you to be well. So they're going to work harder and work with you more to keep you well. Excuse me. Our system is completely set up the other way. The sicker you are, the more often you go to the doctor's office. I mean, it's just common sense. They're going to make more money. And then they start you on a medication, and then, oh, you need to come back for a recheck in a month, and a month, and a month, and a month. You know, I look at my own mother, and she's got a booklet like this, and it's like this appointment this day, this. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I'm like, mm. So I would say look at those kinds of things. And the reason I say that for, you know, the title of this was, How Do I Start Carnivore? I'm of the personality, and it doesn't mean you have to do this. I'm giving you these ideas and I'm giving you these things to go look up yourself because it lit a fire under me. Like when my doctor, and when I was age 20, handed me a script for a medication and I asked how long I'm going to have to take this, and he said the rest of your life. I just refused to believe I needed to live out of a bottle at 20. I just wasn't going to do it. And it seemed so foreign to me and so not foreign to him. And he was a newer doctor. I was like, no. So that to me, I'm that personality. Like if you tell me I can't do something or you won't be able to attain this or reach that goal, I'm going to reach it because it's just the way I have to prove people wrong. And so that's why I say this sometimes gives you some of that fire. If you don't have the fire to try this to get better for your own accord, when you see just how in bed these people are together and they knew what they were doing, this has not been accidental. We're not sick and fat on accident. You know, if you look at like your military age and I say mostly men. I mean, we have women in the military, so I don't want to take it away from them. But if you look at the military age of our population, not good. It's not very good. It isn't what I want, which I'm okay. I'm prepared to take care of myself. So anyway, so let's see, where will we go next? Oh, yes, I do want to say this. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you're always down on doctors in the medical system. I am always down on the corporate medical system 100% of the time. I do believe there are still some great doctors out there. I personally, if I was out looking for a doctor or a primary care person, whether that be a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, which I actually prefer, um, there are still great ones out there, but I would look for ones that are not connected to large corporate medical systems, because large corporate medical systems, it is no longer about you. Their mission and vision statement that they put on their wall is a bunch of bullshit. They don't mean a word of it. It's probably laughable when they look at it. It's laughable when I looked at it. It all comes down to their stockholders. That's who they're beholden to in their board. So let's see. Yes, let's talk about the standard of care. So, I love the standard of care. So the standard of care, it's basically a benchmark that they set that determines whether professional obligation to patients have been met. All these legal terms instead of medical terms. And that sounds good. You think, oh yeah, I want my doctor to be held to a certain standard so that he's not doing bad things. But really, if you look at the gray of that statement, it's that they can't use their brain to try anything unless the standard of care says it's okay to do so. And I think a few years ago we had a pandemic where we saw that kind of take place. Failure to meet these benchmarks is considered negligence. So the standard of care is not created by doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals. No, no, no. It is created by state legislatures, administrative agencies, and the courts. Okay. And those same administrative agencies, like the NIH, CDC, WHO, Food and Drug Administration, USDA, all of those. They're the ones that decide the food that we eat that makes us sick, decide the medications that are approved for those sicknesses, and on and on and on. So this is why I go over this stuff, because this is what lights my fire, because I'll be damned if I'm going to let a bunch of elitists decide what happens in my body. So I believe in trying to treat patients and give them optimal care as you would your own family. And when I hear a physician say that and mean it, that impresses me. That's the person I want to go see. I don't want to see the one that says, you got 15 minutes to ask questions. What do you need? I have other patients to see. And I know they're busy, but if they're in a corporate ran facility, they've got benchmarks that they have to hit on how many patients they see that day, not how great was your care. Well, I don't want my care to be rushed just so you can hit, 65, 70 patients for a day when you're not giving good care to those patients. That's not optimal care. So let's see. After you digest all of those things, if you choose to go out and dig, you don't have to. I just say, ask yourself, do you want to be that gerbil that's running on the wheel where you're not going anywhere? I chose not to be part of that. If you want to go down the rabbit hole, it will enlighten you. If you want a good reason to get better other than great health and energy, that's what you want to do then, go down that rabbit hole. Next up, I say, write down your why. Take before pictures, front, side, back, whatever, however you want to take them, have somebody else do it. Write down your measurements. And I'm talking from your neck down, multiple areas of your body. I would also pay attention to your clothing. So not necessarily the size, because, I wear size 8s. And I've noticed that size 8s are more like the old size 10s. My husband wears like, used to be large, like sweatshirts and shirts. Um, and we bought him a large, and my God, it was like a 2X. And I thought it was a mistake, like maybe they just put the wrong tag. So we went back and traded that in and did a completely different brand, different thing. Same thing, picked it up, and literally it was like it was made at the Burlington Tent and Awning Factory. I was like, are they making the sizes bigger? I kind of feel like they might be. So I would pay attention to those things. I would also learn, and this is something that came to me not until I was doing carnivore. When I was eating keto, it was all about trying to make food look exactly like I remembered it. It was like this, I wanted to taste exactly like it was. Well, that's a fallacy. Took too much time, too much money. I spend so much less money now. So I would have to say that once I became carnivore, I started paying attention to this food is fuel for my body. It's not for fun. It's not for entertainment. And right now, we've been through a few of these holidays where everything is surrounded by food. I'm still there. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to be part of it. And I say that I'm not going to partake in that kind of stuff. I just won't do it. And when I do make stuff, it's generally much healthier than they expected to. Well, they don't even know. They just eat it. That's all I'll say about that, because if I say too much, they'll quit eating it. I always say if you're not paying attention to your food, which, like I said, back in keto days, I really didn't. It became mindless eating. You're just still doing the same things. That's why I don't eat pork rinds. Pork rinds, I went to pork rinds versus chips because of that crisp, that crunch and that hand mouth. And I'd buy a big bag of those Macs, and hell, it'd be gone in a day. Now, probably wasn't hurting me per se because of the calories and it's a high fat and stuff like that, but it was leading to mindless eating and almost like a snacking type thing. And I wasn't even hungry. And I literally sat on the couch one day and I was like, I just ate half a bag of pork rinds and I'm absolutely not even hungry. And it ended up being the only thing I ate that day because I was so mad at myself. I was like, this is stupid. So like I said, I'm not a moderator. So I just had to say, that was the last bag I ever bought. So, being sick and being miserable is not a normal aspect of life. And I think we've gotten so used to it. Commercials, even kids' cartoons, you see these cartoon characters that are heavy and complaining and miserable and eating all the junk. And I'm like, boy, we are just setting up our kids to think that this is normal. And it's not. So you have to decide, are you wanting better health, improve body composition, improve mood, overall better feelings? What is your reason for doing this? And like I said, I went into you can decrease your carbohydrates a little at a time. I don't count anything. I did weigh, what did I weigh the other day? Oh, I made the shampoo bars, with my tallow. That's the first time I've had my food scale out in over 4.5 years, and I was surprised that even the battery still worked. But I don't count calories. I eat until I'm comfortably stuffed, and then I don't eat again until I have those cues, and I have to be careful with that because I'll end up in a 72-hour fast if I'm not careful, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I don't do it every single, I was doing it weekly, and I just really wasn't seeing benefits from it. And I don't really care to lose any more weight. I just kind of like staying where I'm at. But I didn't see any benefits in my health. So I thought I'm not going to purposely set out to do that. But I stay full because of the amount of fat I take in, that I can be like, oh, I didn't eat since Monday. Just like fasting up until Christmas. I wasn't even hungry. What did I take? I took ribeye fat, and salt. That's what I took with me to eat, while they had a fish fry and had ham and stuff like that. Mine was much better. I absolutely believe so. Let's see. The other thing before you start, research the heck out of stuff. I recommend Jason Fung, who is an endocrinologist. He talks a lot about fasting. You know, he works with diabetics. I think that he's a wonderful person to follow. Dr. Baker, Dr. Berry. And it's not that I do any of these things that the doctors say down the line. You still have to, you know, they're giving an overview, just like I am. You might be on this side, you might be on that side of it. It's not one size fits all, okay? You'll have to do trial and error. And I think as long as you start out on the right foot, which is what I'm trying to help, so that you don't have to kind of go, you know, and learn the hard ways, is I think if you listen to some of these people and plan ahead, if you're somebody who doesn't have a gallbladder, you may want to get some bile salts, like ox bile. Dr. Berg is another doctor, and he has some really good bile salts. I have a lot of people that have had to use his, and it's not that you have to use them forever. It's until your gallbladder gets back, because they get floppy. The muscle gets weak because you don't really use a lot of bile to break down stuff that's junk. But once you start eating protein and high fat, all of a sudden you do need that bile, which is why a lot of people are like, well, I have stones. Well, you already had stones. But now that you're utilizing, you know, the bile, it's not sitting in there forever and ever and getting disgusting and turning into sludge and stones. It's actually squirting out the bile like it's supposed to do. It's kind of amazing, all these body parts that were put in there, that we need. But I would say start out with that. Get a good salt, whether it be Celtic, Redmond's real salt. I started with pink Himalayan salt, but found that there was lots of plastics in that. So I ventured away from those. They come from a lot of different places too. So I do the Redmond's real salt, which you can see back here. And I have like pounds and pounds of it. I mean, pounds. Or the Celtic. Frederick Brown from Hanging with the Browns. I think his wife, G, uses that salt, and I think he uses the Celtic. He likes it better. It's very expensive. I did look at it, and I was like, I should try this and see. And then I saw the price, and I was like, I'm okay with the one I got. I'm good with that. So, plus, and I'm not an affiliate with Redmond's, but they do, I don't know if you have to become a member or you just order some. I don't know, because I don't remember when I signed up with their Redmonds.com. But, you know, I bought so much salt that all of a sudden I had all these reward points. Well, hell, I got like 6 1-pound bags of salt for nothing. Zero. Nothing. Because I had bought so much that, you know, they have a reward system. And I was like, hey, there you go. So I would do that. And I don't do like LMNT. I'm not saying anything against that company. It's Element. They have sodium, potassium, magnesium sachets, and they have different flavors. Some have sweetener. They have one that does not. I would definitely do the one that does not, because stevia, even natural stevia, and I grew it. I have it in my garden, can cause spikes in the body. So, and some people can handle them and some can't. I can't. So I just stay away from that, monk fruit, any of that stuff. I would try to have your pantry cleaned out if you can. Like if your whole family's going to be like, yep, we're going to clean up our diet, then I recommend just dumping it all. And if you haven't seen a really great video on that, G Brown from Hanging with the Browns does one. Oh my God, the stuff she threw away is just crazy. Because she went from vegan to carnivore. And is so much healthier. My gosh, if you look at her before pictures, it's crazy. Just the glow that she has now compared to where she was previous to that. But I'd say if you can clean everything out, do so. If you're the only one, like in my household, I'm the only one eating this way. My husband does eat very meat, fat, heavy, standard American diet. With that being said, 90% of what he puts in his mouth, we grew. So they're heirloom seeds. They haven't been adulterated. I'd say it's better than what's in the stores, and it's not been processed. So he's better than, you know, it's not affecting him at this time. I know this is going to sound so stupid, but I was 20 at the time, so hear me out. When I gave up everything in 1991, I was 20 years old. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and I knew that I wanted to purposely do that because I'm like, ooh, if I can make it through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, I've got it made. So I wanted to make myself do it that way. And I remember going to Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's, and I mean, they had all the desserts, all the things. And I remember telling myself to subliminally look at that and see it as dog crap. I know that sounds stupid, but I really did that. I visually made myself look at it as though it was something that would be so repulsive. Why would you ever touch it? And I had to, I mean, it took decades for me to be able to go, just look at it for what it is, because I literally still saw it that way. But that's how I did it. So, I mean, maybe come up with something as to, what this does in the body and see it as poison. If you want to see it as the skull and crossbones, whatever works for you. But that's what I did. Let's see. So I also say, as you're starting this out, just think back over your lifetime, all the diets that you've tried, all the different things you've done. You followed the medical advice, you followed the nutritionist guides, which you followed the food pyramid. And are you healthy, not sick, not in pain, not overweight, no brain fog, no depression, anxiety, none of these diseases that I believe are metabolic diseases? If you can say, yeah, I'm great on the standard American diet, then why would you change? But if I will say, most of you will be like, no, I'm not better. I'm not healthy. I'm not doing all the things I was told to do. It didn't help. Then why not give this a try? And I say, give it 90 days. I don't say 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're not going to get enough of the benefits. And you're going to do a lot of oxalate dumping, which is because of the high vegetables and different things that we've eaten. So high oxalate foods are going to be green leafy vegetables, any soy, which is, don't put soy in your body if you can possibly help it, almonds, potatoes, teas, rhubarb, green, especially green tea, cereal, grains, and beets. Coffee doesn't have oxalates, but it does have mycotoxins in it, which come from mold and fungi, which is why a lot of people have trouble with that. So I also cut that out. A lot of people are still able to do this. Some of these things, like the oxalates, they can disrupt ketosis. They'll knock you out of ketosis, insomnia, anxiety, and adrenal fatigue. So the signs of oxalate dumping are usually cramps, dizziness, pain, and fatigue. When you break down the fat in your body that's been holding on to, the oxalates and all the stuff, because the fat cells is where a lot of these things are stored, you're going to break those down and they're going to release and you're going to feel it. So I always say, be prepared. Have the electrolytes, or have the salt, maybe some magnesium, potassium. Have those things in case you need those, and reach out to people who have been doing, this carnivore. Like I said, I'm a Healthy Carnivore on YouTube, Healthy and Carnivore on Instagram. Facebook is Laura P. Russell. You can ask any questions. Also on my YouTube, I have my email. If you want me to help you, I can help guide you. I don't charge anything for it, and no shame on people that do charge to help people with that. Someday I may have to do that, because I may no longer be a nurse at some point, because I'm willing to put that. I'm not going to be part of a system that says I have to do things that I know are hurting my patients. So if it ever comes down to making that choice, it's an easy choice. I will absolutely walk away from it. So at some point I may have to do that. But right now I just do it. Okay. Because I just want people to be better. I'll never run out of patients, because they're going to have car accidents and other things happen. And some people are never willing to give this stuff up. So I'll never run out of that. So the other thing is with adrenal fatigue, you feel tired, worn out. That's another thing that you get with high oxalates. Even if you have adequate sleep, you still wake up and you're like, God, I'm still tired. I need the coffee. I need this. Adrenal fatigues. Your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys, if you didn't know. So these things cause you to also want salty chips and things like that. So that when your adrenals go out of whack, it increases your cortisol, which is your fight or flight, like get the hell out of here, a bear's chasing me type thing. If that stays high for super long times, which I'd say a lot of people have bad, well, you can see it when you look at somebody and they've got that fatty lump, that hump between their shoulder blades. almost always, I'm like, their cortisone is sky high and has been, and that's kind of like Cushing syndrome. So, Cushing syndrome is due to having extreme high levels of cortisol for extended periods of time. They'll have a real round face. They may, like, I have stretch marks from when I was super heavy, but you can't even hardly see them. You can feel them more than you can see them. Um, but people with like Cushing syndrome with that really high cortisol, they'll be purpley pink, even if they have like already, like their skin isn't stretched, not like brand new ones when they turn purple and pink, but if they, haven't had a baby recently, but yet they're still very bright, that is a sign. It can lead to hypertension, bone loss, and even diabetes if your cortisol stays high constantly. Um, so I want everybody to live their best life. And I know some people are like, well, but that is my food. My food is my enjoyment. But that's where I think if you get in the community and hear and see some of these people who have made remarkable changes in their health, that I think you'll see that there's more out there to life than just enjoying your food. I enjoy my steaks. And I look forward to like when's my next steak, but I don't sit there and pine about it, and I don't have to overthink anything. It's like I know what I'm having, or I'm having burgers tomorrow that I mix my deer meat and my liver in. I already know, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. That's the other thing. You're going to have so much time to do other things because you're not going to be constantly thinking about the next meal. And I even like, will cook stuff for my husband. A lot of times he does his own sides, but I don't think about that because I'm like, me saying to him, what do you want for a side is like him asking me what I'm going to eat tomorrow. He has no idea. I have no idea what you want for a side. And I'm not being mean, maybe a little, but I'm not being mean. I'm not trying to be mean with that. It's just like, I have no idea because I don't put that stuff in my body. I choose not to. With all of this being said, I would also say not to look at this as though it's a diet. It has to be a lifestyle change, which I do think is something that I kind of come onto when I was 20. And I just knew reading those old medical books, and it was all about nutrition. And I was like, how come our new medical books have nothing about nutrition? Because they don't care about that. That's not the model they went with. That wasn't going to make them the big bucks. Because, everybody wants to make a good living, but you don't have to make a killing at people's expense. But I always look back at, like, when I first went into this, I threw it all away. And I was like, I don't really care because I'm never going back to that. So I knew it was a lifestyle change that I would never be going back to. So I never looked at it as a diet. I had dieted from a little kid up because I was one of those little fat kids. Like I said, I recommend doing 90 days, marking down. If you're somebody that likes to keep notes, mark down. I didn't feel this today. This joint doesn't hurt today. I was able to do these things. I didn't need 4 cups of coffee. I didn't need coffee at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon to stay awake. My brain fog is lifting. My depression and anxiety, I can see like these bright colors again out in the world. I think if you write those things down, and plus, you're going to be noticing your clothes changing. And I will tell you this, I'm going to be honest. Some people lose weight immediately when they switch to this way of eating. I did not. I gained 10 pounds in 2 months' time, and I freaked out because, we're trained that we're only as important as what the scale says, which I've now, I think, broke myself of that because I don't own one. I don't really care. But I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And I just dug and dug and dug into all the literature I could find on it. And it was, well, your body is in a healing mode now. The standard American diet has slowly poisoned you your entire lifetime from a baby because I was put on soy formula. And so you have to heal. And in order to heal, you're going to get some of that inflammation. You're going to have some of those things going on because you're getting rid of stuff. So I just stayed the course. I just was like, I don't care. I'm doing this for 90 days. I don't care if I'll just wear baggy clothes. I'll buy more baggy stuff. And I wear a nurse's uniform. So these always have room and you can add more weight if you have to. But anyway, I just stayed the course. And I don't even remember how far into it. Maybe at a month and a half, I was in size 10 or 12s, I think, at the time for Levi's, which I don't buy anymore. Um, but and I was like, oh, did I grab the wrong size? Because I have all the different sizes, you know. And I was like, I'm going to have to find a belt. So I did, and I was in a hurry that day, so I didn't really even look at the size. I just got the belt and put it on. And I remember coming home and I was like, no, that's the same ones I had on, 2 weeks ago. I was like, I'm going to go do my measurements again. And I'll be damned, I was down 3 inches in that time frame around my waist. And I was like, there you go. So track measurements, pay attention to how you feel. If you're struggling, reach out. This is such a large community. You got Hanging with the Browns, you got Carnivorous Grandma, Carnivore Family, Carnivore Leo, Dr. Barry, and Nisha. I'm trying to think, Dr. Chaffee, Dr. Baker, Lisa Wiederman, oh boy, Laura Spath. She's one I've been watching. Kelly Hogan, really great to watch. Trying to just think out there. Carnivore Hunters, Carnivore Brothers, Homestead How, Poco Moonshine Family, Adam, which is that Carnivore Today, Russ, and what is he? Is he Homesick Buckeye? He is a hoot. You guys got to watch him. He cracks me up. And he is as real as it gets. I mean, he'll just tell you, like, I ate the bad, I did this, I did that. But he always gets kind of back on. But he's wonderful. But just find your tribe of people that'll back you up. And it will also wake you up to see people who want to sabotage you. And we self-sabotage enough as it is. We don't need people that are doing that. And I don't say that I only hang out with people who are like-minded politically or anything else. I think you have to have some of that opposition. But I've learned to use that to my benefit. So hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I just wrote down my thoughts yesterday at lunch as to ways of starting carnivore and things that you need to do. And like I said, please reach out, if you have any questions. I have so many links to different studies that, yeah, it's just, and the studies have been out there, which is maddening in its own right, that they've been out there for a long time and they knew better, but they didn't do better. So that's all I have to say for today. So I'm going to go to work and pick on people today and see who else I can get to find their health again. So you guys have a wonderful day. As I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat.